What's up, guys? Darkside Spencer here, and today I'm going to be doing a movie review for the movie It Chapter 2. Now, usually I would have a green screen for such a movie that's high profile like this. However, I decided not to do so because I'm moving around my stuff. As you guys can see, I have a chair now, so this is basically what my reviews are going to look like. I may put the green screen behind me for the next one, but this time I really just wanted to do an impromptu movie review because I did watch It Chapter 2 fairly recently. It was like Thursday of last week. So, if you guys don't know anything about my series, The Purity Project, I actually made a series based on basically like it's hard to describe. However, it's mainly about mental illness, DID, and how basically two people with DID interact with each other, and it just goes spiraling from there. But basically, during the series, it was more of like a vlog-based series where everything was portrayed as reality. And there's one episode where we actually decided to go see it, Chapter 1, and it was like before we went and seen it. And we came back and we loved it. Chapter 1, it was incredible. We loved it. Um, so yeah, I don't, you know, I really enjoyed it. Chapter 1 because it was just so fresh and so different than a lot of the movies that had come out in a long time. Besides like The Conjuring and stuff like that, it was one of those few, I guess, alien creature movies where they kill kids that really surprised me, and I really wanted to like it. And my expectations were exceeded. So I wasn't really planning on, you know, walking out of that theater not buying the Blu-ray is what I'm trying to say. I bought the Blu-ray. In fact, it's here somewhere, but um, I once I saw It Chapter 1 at the end title screen, whatever it is, basically at the end of the end credits, or actually at the end of the movie, it says It Chapter 1, and me and my buddy Sean, who was helping me do the series, we both looked at each other like we're gonna go see It Chapter 2 together, and basically I wanted to fulfill that promise of me and him going together and seeing It Chapter 2. Fast forward 2 years later, I have a girlfriend. I've made more friends. So I decided to include my girlfriend. Well, she's not really my girlfriend yet. If you're watching this, you know you are. She does watch my videos sometimes, so she'll get a kick out of that one. But you know, basically, it was supposed to be just me and him at that time. But then again, I was like, let's include everybody. You know what I mean? This movie's gonna be epic. We've all seen it, so let's just include everybody and get in on the hype because we wanted to go early. We wanted to be some of the first people to watch this movie, and we got like a 7 o'clock showing, really damn good seats, on September 5th. I want to say that sounds about right, but let me check it real quick. I think it was September 5th. Yes, it was September 5th at 7 o'clock, and we went in, we got checked for IDs, all that good stuff, and basically, I took my buddy Aaron, my girlfriend, Sean, and myself. And, you know, we were all pumped. We've been talking about it for weeks. It was just, this is one of those rare movies where it's like a once in a lifetime thing. And when we walked out of there, it was a mixed reaction. But we all collectively, in the end, we decided that we all enjoyed the movie. Now, I do have my positives for this film of It Chapter 2. Um, you know, I really, really, really wanted to like this movie. And, it was just like It Chapter 1, where I walked in thinking it was going to be mediocre to good, and it exceeded my expectations. This movie, it only got to about mediocre for me. And I know that's a little bit spoiling my review there, but It Chapter 2, for me, had a lot of things going on for a 3-hour movie. And I feel that some of those things held back the movie a little bit because it was 3 hours and because they had to kind of mash it all together to get the damn story done. Um, you know, I just want to talk to you about them now. Let's just go ahead and start off with my positives. And I've actually got my list here of everything on my phone. I'm just going to talk about them. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but that was a little bit of backstory for you prior to seeing this film. So my positives, they start off with the great cinematography. I don't know who the DP is of this film. Whoever he is, he did a really damn good job. I think some of the directing choices was good. However, I'm not going to spoil for what I think about the directing. But the cinematography for this film, it can't be beat. They had really noticeable shots that I think will stick with me. And I think that whenever you watch the movie, it'll stick with you as well. Next is great casting. I really enjoyed the casting in this movie. They just got so many people that looked like the kids from the 2017 film. It was almost as if they took these kids and put them in like a time warp or like a like one of those time travel machines and just set it 27 years later, and then brought them back out and was like, let's make the movie in 2019. Like, you know what I mean? There was some exceptions, and I'll talk about that with my negatives, that I felt were misused. But the casting is just really well done, and I think this is the only movie where I feel like, you know, the kids versus the adults, they look almost seamless, including one character named Stanley, who looked like almost by God exactly like that same kid. Like, it was insane how close it was. So yeah, I really enjoyed the great casting in this movie. You got Jessica Chastain, you got James McAvoy, you got Bill Hader, Bill Skarsgård returning as Pennywise. You know, and there's a couple of others, but, you know, they're sort of unknown to me at least. But you got some big name actors in this film, and I'll talk about my thoughts of their performances a little bit later on. But yeah, they got, really A-lister actors, or, they just got some good actors in this movie, and I was really shocked about who they got to play Richie, because Bill Hader was always like a comedy guy, and then all of a sudden he comes into a horror movie. Incredible. He was incredible in this movie. For a first time horror actor, it was just wild seeing a comedian go from, a comedian or a comedy actor to a horror film actor. It was incredible. But yeah, the casting is really, really stand out. Like, it really stands out for this year. Because I'm starting to put together my list of great films and all that stuff, because I will be doing a top 10 best films, 10 top 10 worst films, and my top 10 least, or I think they're called the top 10 bombers, which is actually a play on the word. It's the ones that really I thought were going to be really bad, but they turned out to be good. So look out for those at the end of 2019. But let's keep going. We got decent, tense scenes. There are some scenes in this movie regarding two people's deaths. And it is, well, one thing, they don't let up in this movie. Like, I feel like some of the scariness and the tense scenes in this movie top It Chapter 1. And I think some of it actually tops the original miniseries. Now, I'll get to it later in my negatives. However, there's some scenes in this movie where you're gripping your seat. And that really surprised me, because in It Chapter 1, I never really gripped gripped my seat. Besides the projector scene. That scene in theaters was incredible. I always tell people this. Go see freaking It Chapter 1 and 2 in theaters, because the theater experience for these films are, like, incredible. Like, they are shocking of how the audio design and the visuals really pop and they really stand out. In fact, the director Andy Muschietti, I think his name is, um, he actually said that whenever you go see It Chapter 1 or 2, that you should watch these in theaters and not buy them at home, or like wait. Don't wait to see them at home because the experience isn't the same as like in a theater. And I agree with him. It Chapter 1 was laughable at home, but it was incredible in theaters. Now that's a little bit of a controversial statement for you. There you go. But I believe that these films should be experienced in theaters, and a lot of the tense scenes really stand out in theaters more than they do at home. Mainly because you're in a pitch dark room, people you don't really know, and just a few friends maybe. Um, the films will work better in theaters. Is all I'm gonna say. And these tense scenes, seeing them for the first time was incredible. It was just there's one scene revolving the Hall of Mirrors that was decent, decent scariness or tenseness. But then there's a little bit of flashbacks later on where it's like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like it's particularly Pennywise in a locker. That's all I'm gonna say. But it was just intense. And I just really thought that some of these scenes were, that made you grip a little bit. And what I noticed was I was gripping my seat a lot more watching this movie than in It Chapter 1. But in It Chapter 1, the projector scene, I was like glued to my damn seat. Like, you couldn't get me to move if you had a gun to my head. Like, I literally was not moving during that scene. But yeah, this movie, I was gripping a lot more, but there wasn't stuff that was like, oh my gosh, like I got to get out of this theater, like It Chapter 1 with the projector scene. The projector scene, genuinely, I was like almost getting ready to get out of my seat because of how like tense that scene was. And because it was just like out of nowhere, you know what I mean? So the next one, kind of weaving this back into, weaving this, a little bit of a, I can't think of the word, but basically I'm just going to slide this right into my next point. Segue, that's the word I'm looking for. I'm going to segue what I just said with the dark and decent tense scenes into my Carnage Candy section. This movie doesn't give a fuck. I'm sorry. This movie has so much blood in it that it's like, it's just nasty at points. Especially one scene, and you may have seen it in the trailer, but the opening scene actually has quite a bit of blood, and I've got to admit, I was really surprised at how much blood and how much they were willing to show on camera. And, they didn't, there is a couple of kids killed in this movie, and it was, shocking that they were willing to go even farther than It Chapter 1 did. You know what I mean? Like, It Chapter 1, like, surprised people with the Georgie scene. This movie, fuck. It's people dying left and right, including kids. I'm like, what? Like, it's, like, incredible. Of how far they're willing to push that boundary. It was just incredible. Just by how much blood, how much gore. It is much more of a gorier film, I gotta admit. There's just stuff in this movie that is gross-ish, in terms of blood. However, I feel that It Chapter 1, having that that subtleness with the gore, I think works better, to a degree. But in this movie, I think they used enough blood, enough gore, that it just gave us enough to come back. So, I think it was worth. I think you should just see the movie just based on how much gore was in the fucking movie. I gotta admit, the movie was just really good with how much blood and us people who are genuine horror fans, they're gonna enjoy that a lot. My last positive is gonna be weaving the old cast and the old story with them as kids into the new story with the adult versions of these kids. So yeah, I think that they did a decent enough job of weaving the story, and there's actually scenes that you didn't get to see in between the period where the Losers Club was broken up. Because if you remember, Richie or Eddie, whichever one, wanted to stop doing these run-ins with Pennywise. He didn't want to do all that again because it was just getting too wild and crazy. So they actually show what like their run-ins with Pennywise in between that break of them being separated off, and you see the scenes that brought them back together, pretty much. And I thought that was interesting. I thought that was interesting that they showed us scenes that we should have seen, but they decided to hold it off and bring it back for the sequel. And they also weave the stories of or the perspectives of the new cast, the adult losers. Basically, the way they do it is like they kind of see each other doing stuff, and I think that's interesting. And they also have some scenes where the fears are of the childhood, the child cast, the child story of it, whenever they were a kid, whenever they were all kids, they showed their fears back then, and then they showed the new fears, what they fear now. I thought that was interesting, and I really enjoyed that aspect. Now, let's get into my negatives. This movie had a shit ton of negatives. It's like 9 negatives. I'm not even gonna lie. There was a lot of stuff I did not like about this movie, or stuff that was just questionable. You know what I mean? A little bit of a mixed aspect that I will put an asterisk, not an asterisk on camera, because this is just being uploaded like straight up. I'm not gonna do any editing, but I thought that the way that they did Pennywise this time around, I thought was a lot less effective, and they gave Pennywise a lot less to do. Like I think what they did was they filmed a lot of scenes with Pennywise, but they only included like the best parts, or like the scenes that are the creepiest or whatever, and they just sort of weaved it throughout the story. But I thought it was gonna be like the miniseries, where it's like you see Pennywise almost in every damn scene. And in this version, especially in this remake, it's like in both part 1 and 2, it's like you only get like 18 to 20 minutes of Pennywise in the whole damn runtime of 5 hours. I don't understand why they want to hold back Pennywise when that's your fucking antagonist. That is like what everyone's coming to see is the clown, and you just don't ever see him unleashed. Really, like unless you call the ending of this movie really Unleashed. I mean, to me it was sort of scaled down, but I thought it was just kind of odd that like they just really have a problem with showing Pennywise more often in the movie. But you wouldn't notice that if you were watching the film. Unless you're really like into this movie, like you've been anticipating it the whole fucking time. The whole like flagship attraction for this film is Pennywise. You're not gonna notice that Pennywise isn't in it that much. But if you're a fan of Pennywise, you're gonna be like, damn, where the hell is Pennywise at? Like, how come these other mugs are being the antagonists of this movie? I came to see fucking Pennywise. So yeah, Pennywise isn't in it this movie that much. I think he's more in it this time around, but only by like a few more minutes. I thought they just really downplayed the effect of Pennywise a little bit, and also that's going to segue into my next topic, my next negative. The fucking CGI in this movie, holy shit, god damn, dude, I'm sorry, but the teeth, are you kidding me? Like, that shit pisses me off to no avail. Like, literally, that pisses me off every time I see those teeth. The teeth are, like, just CGI'd fucking... You could tell it's CGI'd. Like, they just start becoming long, like, out of nowhere. Like, a foot long fucking... Just one teeth, or one tooth, is fucking 12 foot long. And it looks CGI'd, video gamey as hell. And it just doesn't look real. I think they should have just went with prosthetics. Like, fucking the miniseries did. I thought that was scarier back whenever it came out than now. The teeth just look so stupid to me. But they're scary at times. They're like frightening to look at, but like you can just tell if you've worked anywhere in like photograph or photography or like video editing, you could tell it's CGI to hell. Hell, people who literally have no eye for it are bitching about it. And I think that's hilarious because like the mass majority of people who see your content, your film, shouldn't be able to notice it because they're not going to be they're not filmmakers, you know what I mean? But if you've got other filmmakers looking at it, you're going to be like, "Damn, is this a fan film of it?" Like it's bad. That's all I'm going to say. It was bad in terms of the CGI. And then you have this click off this video right now if you don't want to hear spoilers because I'm going into the spoiler section. But anyways, I really enjoyed this movie. You know, it's got a lot of problems. But yeah, click off if you don't want to hear spoilers because I know a lot of people haven't seen the movie yet. They're waiting for like a day off from school or work or whatever. So click off right now if you don't want to hear any spoilers. Alright, enough fucking waiting. Really? The fucking spider? Are you kidding me? Dude, oh my god. It was... Dude. It was like a mixture of two things. It was like really impressive of like the scaling of like, you know, Bill Skarsgård, you know, as Pennywise. But god damn did it look rough. It looked a little bit too rough for me. It just looked like 80s, 90s fucking CGI at points. You know, it didn't look fluid. It looked almost like, I don't know, like, I can't explain it besides it just looked jittery and it didn't look smooth like it was real. It threw me off. Now, at first it looked good, but once it turns into like big ass, like fucking, I don't know, skyscraper, like Godzilla looking ass fucking spider, it was awful. I thought it just looked rough. And they could have went back and edited that a little bit more smoothly and just did a little bit more with the design. You know, the CGI is a damn problem in this movie. You know, but everything else, like, you know, they could have just done prosthetics. Besides the spider, you can't do that scene without CGI, but like, literally, they could have used prosthetics for the teeth. You know, it just looked rough to me. And some of the blood looked like CGI, and I was pissed off by that. It just didn't look genuine, it didn't look real, so it was just like, you know, whatever. The CGI just sucked ass in this movie. This is the next one. The runtime and the pacing of this film was like, ugh. The movie is almost like 3 hours long or something like that. It's like 2 hours and 50 minutes. And like, I'm sorry, but they could have cut this movie down to at least 2 hours. They could have cut at least 50 minutes out of this fucking movie, and it'd be the same movie, even better for the pacing. I feel like the second act, they really just slow down the story to reveal certain scenes that happened to them as kids, and it just didn't flow the same way as it did in It Chapter 1. And it just sort of like, just made the story stop on a fucking dime, and then just continue it with another character, and then another character, and another character, until they all just come up with all their artifacts that they need. I just felt it just stopped the story, and it just wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't my thing. But then again, I feel like I got my money's worth because it was 2 hours and 50 minutes in the damn theater with a movie that I ended up enjoying. But as a filmmaker and as someone who wants to, you know, make films for a living, this movie was fucking garbage. You know, like, it wasn't garbage, like, it was good, but it was just undercooked. And they just didn't explore the themes and the routes that they should have with a runtime like fucking 2 hours and 50 minutes. It should have just been a lot more packed into it if they were going to make a 3 hour movie. I don't know. I don't know if you guys are gonna agree with me with that, but it just felt like you felt like every damn minute in this movie. Once you hit the 1 hour mark, you're like counting minutes. I'm sorry, like that's just how I felt. Um, Even when the ending was happening, like where some good scares and intense scenes were happening, even I was like, all right, what time is it? Where's my phone at? Um, it just seemed like the movie was a little bit slowish, and we gotta talk about the directing and the writing of that. I feel like they could have done a better job with the pacing, with the script, a better use of the characters. I feel like that the humor in this film was awfully placed. Like they should have waited at least a little bit until after the scary stuff was over. But like, there's some scenes where it's like it's terrifying, and you're laughing for no fucking reason because someone made a joke about what was happening. Like a character made a joke about what was happening to them or to their friends, and it was just comedic, but it was supposed to be a terrifying scene. I don't understand why they had to mix the two. Um, if I had to be honest, this film would be classified as a comedy horror, not a horror comedy, because holy hell, it focuses on comedy more than horror. And in the movie like this, it should be terrifying to leave a mark, and they dropped the ball on that. The next thing I have to say is that they just sort of went a little bit too PC, a little bit politically correct. Now that's not a negative for me. That's more of a mixed aspect. I think the way they did it was breathtaking because you realize that a character from It Chapter 1, who was like arguably the best character, was actually a closeted homosexual, and you're like, wow, like this character is, you know, he's really fighting some demons, and I feel like they played that really well, and they really did a really good job with not offending most of its core audience, and they sort of just dipped their hand in that and shouted out the LGBTQ community with that character, and I think they did it really well and really respectful. However, I feel that the way that character's relationship with another character, Eddie, who is arguably the worst character in this movie, but one of the better parts about It Chapter 1. It Chapter 1, he was very sarcastic, a little bit of a potty mouth to him every once in a while. Um, but in It Chapter 2, he sort of reverts back to who he was in It Chapter 1 as a kid. And you just don't see why he reverted back. And the relationship between the other character, who is a closeted homosexual, and Eddie, is never really explained. It's sort of like a background theme, or just a little bit of symbolism that honestly has no place in the movie if they're not going to utilize it. But they kind of do at the end, if you've seen the movie. They sort of, imply it, which I think is a good route to do it. I think they should imply it because, in the 80s, being gay was very, very looked down upon. And nowadays, it's sort of like, whatever, you know what I mean? Because it's so accepted now. And I think the reason why they did it that way is because it is more accepted now. However, these are people that you've known all your life. So, or that you've known as kids. And you kind of don't want to give them that information just yet. So I understand the reason why they did it and the route they went. But they could have given us a little bit more than what they gave us. And instead of heavily or like subtly implying it, they should have doubled down on it a little bit and then have him reveal it to his friends at the end that he is gay. I think that would have worked a little bit better, for me at least. This is the biggest damn thing about this movie. I think I'm going on 30 minutes. The biggest thing about this movie is that besides Bill Hader, I don't know if I talked about this in my positives or not, but I think I did. I don't know. But Bill Hader is the only standout in this film, and you've got Jessica Chastain from fucking Interstellar, a god tier movie, and then you got James McAvoy from fucking Split and Split and Glass, who played like 24 different fucking personalities, and you couldn't give them anything good, like in terms of the writing. You couldn't give them any standout scenes, and you had to give all of it to Bill Hader only because he's a comedian. You know, I just don't understand that. I think it should have been well rounded out, like It Chapter 1. The comedy should have been every person was likable. And, I just thought that besides Bill Hader, it was like everyone else was shunned. And it felt like Bill Hader was actually the main character, because everyone else was shown damn near not as much. It was incredible how they fucked up, the main character of this film is fucking Bill. Fucking Bill. Billy is the goddamn main character. Bill Denbrow, or whatever his name, however the fuck you say it. That's the main character. He is supposed to be the main character, but all of us, like, I don't know how the fuck they achieved it, but Bill Hader's character, Richie, was fucking literally the main character in the second half. He has the most emotion put into this damn movie. It feels like everyone else was there just to get fucking paid and act a little bit okay, and just be a stand-in, pretty much, for the character. I feel like they could have fleshed out the characters a way ton more than what they gave us. So yeah, I just thought they could have done it way better. You know, I expected a lot more from the director of It Chapter 1. I expected a shit ton more in terms of the performances and the emotions in this film. They could have done a lot more with what they were given. This is one thing that I think a lot of non-book people, non-book fans, who have watched the miniseries and It Chapter 1, and now they're going to go see It Chapter 2. If you're not a fan of the book, or if you've not read it, you're going to be kind of lost on Pennywise's origins, the ritual of Chud, or Chewed, whatever it is. The movie very subtly explains it, and it's, even whenever I was watching it, I still don't understand what the fuck the ritual was about, and how they got rid of him. Besides the final ending, you know what I mean? And you know what I'm talking about, because the ending is fucking embarrassing for a horror film. I'm sorry, that ending was, like, pitiful. I've never seen something that was that distasteful for a Stephen King story. I don't know. It was just, the ending was very bad, but, like, the way they explained Pennywise's origins was, like, fucking clueless. Like, it was, like, it almost seemed as if they were telling us, like, or asking us, almost, like, how the fuck do you explain this? Like, it doesn't make sense at all. Like, they kind of subtly include an explanation that really doesn't explain shit. And unless I just fucking didn't hear it, I'm just wondering if other people had that same problem. Like, to me, they didn't explain what the fuck the ritual was and what Pennywise was. And one thing, we didn't get the goddamn turtle. You motherfuckers. You guys alluded to it this whole time, and you didn't even give us the damn turtle. What the hell? If you're going to go through with the spider, at least give us the goddamn turtle. Fair enough? Okay. So yeah, the ritual and the Pennywise origin shit, weak. Pennywise's death. Alright. That's not a spoiler, because you fucking know he's going to die, or at least, be gotten rid of. The death, I've already said a little bit about it, but the death of Pennywise is fucking awful. They literally say bad things to him, like hurtful things to him, and fucking Pennywise just up and collapses. Like, not collapses, but he literally turns into, like, a small form of himself. And it was literally like, what? That's how you defeat it? Doesn't make sense. What's the purpose of the fucking ritual if it doesn't work? I don't know. I'm not gonna go into this section anymore. But to conclude this review, I thought the ending was very weak. I feel like they went with a cliche, like an inspirational ending, or a metaphorical ending, and it didn't land for me. I thought it was just sort of weak. So yeah, It Chapter 2, It was very weird. It was a very weird experience, and I feel like they could have done a lot more with what they were given. Like they got like almost like triple the budget, and they could have done. I feel like they just doubled down on CGI and just fucking shit out the damn story. Didn't even think about it. They kind of just fucking shit it out, however which way they wanted it. And the cinematographer was like begging God that the story was good enough. You know what I mean? Because I'm sorry, but you can shoot damn good, shots the whole movie or the whole time, but if you don't have a good damn story, you're basically shooting nothing. I'm sorry, but if you shoot, everything so well, if you don't have anything interesting in front of that screen, it's just gonna be cool shots. That's it. There's no story behind it, and if you have a damn good story like it, I don't see the problem. I don't see why and how they could have failed. And to me, they did. They failed in a lot of areas, and they could have just done a lot more with the plot of this film, and like they could have included a lot more characters that could have had a lot more things to say and do, and they decided to just fucking cut it off with one character who obviously is his first time in a horror film, and he's a comedian, but at the same time, you gotta appreciate that, but they sort of just praise one guy. It's sort of like the director was like, "Oh God, Bill Hader, he's a comedian. He's in my film. Like, this is incredible. Let's give everything to him. And let's just fuck everyone else who's been in horror films or dramas or whatever. And, these are A-list actors. And then you got Bill Hader over here who's played in, like, Pineapple Express and shit, who's never done a horror film. And you decide to give everything, to basically have everything on his shoulders when the main character, James McAvoy, Bill fucking Denbrow, should have had every damn solid second besides the comedy. The comedy should remain with Richie because it's consistent with it chapter 1, but they really fucked up the story and who the main character truly is, which is Bill Denbrow versus fucking Pennywise, and it was just a letdown. They didn't fucking do the story justice with it chapter 2. However, if this wasn't a story about it, if it wasn't based off the books, if it was just it, chapter 1, chapter 2, and like they said, it's an adaptation. It's not, entirely, following the book. I think it would be a lot better received, but at the same time, you've got Stephen King himself saying this fucking movie is like goddamn the book. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, but don't promise things that don't try to make promises you can't keep. And they just did a shit ton of things wrong, and they did a lot of good things and a lot of good sequences, and a lot of good callbacks, and a lot of good foreshadowing. They had a mixed bag. They had really bad scenes, they had really damn good scenes, and some scenes they make you want to cry. But then again, chapter 2, it was a letdown. But the movie was really good. If you don't think about it, the movie is really good. But from the quality of it chapter 1 to now, to it chapter 2, massive drop off. They should have stuck to their guns and not have gotten cocky. And just stuck with it with the same quality, the same care as it chapter 1. And what I'm going to give this movie in terms of my rating, it's going to be a... Fuck. I'm going to get so much shit. I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 10. Now, let me defend my answer. I think it's worse than average. I've seen a lot of independent films who've done better and put a lot more effort into their film than these guys have with It Chapter 2. It Chapter 1 was easily a 7 out of 10. This movie, 4 out of 10. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't give it any more than that because it feels like a fucking fan film that they just shit out. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like they didn't care. It felt like they got cocky. And I'm not going to support it. I give it that high because there is some scenes that I liked and was really tense and it was a good theater experience. I just felt like they, dropped the ball. And I think that a lot of people are going to end up agreeing that it was a very much a one-sided cast. Um, One-sided story, really. And it was just, it wasn't as good as It Chapter 1 or the miniseries. And I think that the CGI held down a lot. But it was still a good movie to watch. Like, I'll probably end up getting it on Blu-ray. However, I think you guys should just chill out at home, watch this movie whenever it comes on Netflix or on Amazon, whatever. Um, or if you really want to, go watch it at a matinee. I would not pay, for the 4K Blu-ray steelbook of this movie. Um, you know, the movie was okay, but I think that they could have done a lot better. And that's the true crime of horror films, is that you find out that a lot of the time they could have done better with what they were given and with the plot that they had and the talent that they had, and they just waste it all. And that's what happens, guys. That's what happens with horror films. They sometimes get it right and sometimes they don't get it at all. So yeah, this has been like a 50-minute video. I don't know how long it's going to take me to edit it. I don't think I'm going to edit it. I think I'm just going to fucking release it. But, they could have done a lot better. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I love you guys to death. And please don't kill me in the comment section. Peace out, guys.